So we're working in the gene therapy space. And what's really cool about gene therapy, what we know from evolutionary biology, is that our genes are in control. They're the ones running the show. The side effect profile is really limited. It's a much more friendlier treatment. It's nothing like chemotherapy that's destroying tons of cells in the body in addition to the cancer cells. I mean, we're only having impact on the cancer cells at all. And we've used data to really pinpoint where our focus area is on treatment. When you're actually an operator of an entrepreneurial venture, you control the destiny of that venture. And if you're producing a product that can have an impact on humanity, on people, on the planet, there's so much reward to that.
All right, I am here with an old friend, Ryan Confer. Ryan has, a rich history in entrepreneurism and also helping people through, I'd say, rather sticky situations and, helping them to heal from things that, we previously had rather difficult time healing from. But Ryan, really glad to have you on the show. And the first question I got for you is, what got you interested in the intersection of humanity and technology?
I'm a finance guy, undergrad, back in Pennsylvania, Bloomsburg University of Pennsylvania. And when I first moved to Texas in Austin, about 18 years ago now, I bet, I found myself working for a early stage investment fund. And our focus for that fund was early emerging disruptive technologies. And it was really agnostic in any industry. So we didn't really have a giant focus, but we were looking for technologies that could be disruptive in the marketplace. And I found that incredibly fascinating. We did a lot of due diligence on new technologies, but as we would interview founders, CEOs that were trying to get these technologies to the next stages, I found myself really wanting to be on the other side of the board table. While the investment side is fun, that's what I went to school for. It was the passion that was driving a lot of these founders for whatever technology it was. Maybe as a medical device, or maybe it was for new clean energy sources or biopharma or whatever. There was this passion that they had that was driving them that just felt, my background was purely transactional, that there's some element of passion that they had that I felt like that just looks so cool to be a part of. And so I did a master's program at the University of Texas in technology commercialization. And I kind of used that as a kind of a landing pad for me to get into entrepreneurial activities. Started a couple companies, got involved with a few, invested in a few, and ultimately landed where I'm at today. And I think it was, the best decision I, ever could have made, because, it feels like, it's risky to jump into those entrepreneurial ventures. I mean,
Being an investor, right? Like, you can make 20 different bets and hopefully one of them pays out. And then maybe one of them is break even and the rest of them, you just throw away.
that's right.
But being an operator, right? Like, you put all of your time, effort, and like passion into one thing. And that is a tremendous risk that you're taking and that we've all taken to get to these places. But what attracted you to where you're at today? What was that got you to make the jump into?
Yeah, I mean, there's that different level of passion. Like I said, on the financial side, it's purely transactional, and so you do all these things because you expect, like you said, to hit one home run or one grand slam that essentially covers all of your investments and a little bit more.
Yeah.
Where you're doing financial engineering to get to that point. When you're actually an operator of an entrepreneurial venture, you control the destiny of that venture. And if you're producing a product that can have an impact on humanity, on people, on the planet, there's so much reward to that you just don't get from the investment side of things. And that's what drove me originally. Now, when you take that leap of faith and get into entrepreneurial ventures, like it's hard to take that leap, because you go through periods of time where you may not be making any money, and there's difficult periods, but then there's good periods. But ultimately, it's that you're bringing meaning and fulfillment by being able to work on something that's going to have an impact.
When you got to the point of deciding to join Genprex, right? And what was the solution that you were that you're looking to bring to market?
Yeah, so with Genprex, at the time I was involved in a couple different entities, and what drew me to it originally was a former CEO of a publicly traded company, himself and a few other individuals, one of which had won a Nobel Prize in medicine. They were focused on this specific research at MD Anderson Cancer Center that they thought could revolutionize cancer treatment and really disrupt existing technologies and treatments in the space. And so I was kind of helping out a friend. I knew the CEO of the company at the time, but I was kind of more interested in some of these other projects. But the more I learned about it, the more I met the researcher behind all of the work, and saw the passion there and saw the potential impact. I was hooked. What's really cool about what we're doing is we're utilizing tumor suppressor genes. So we're working in the gene therapy space. And what's really cool about gene therapy, what we know from evolutionary biology, is that our genes are in control. They're the ones running the show.
Yeah.
It's not us. And they can go rogue and cause cancer and all this stuff. And they can do that just because they choose to go rogue. And so the way that we're choosing to combat it is we're using these genes that everybody has in their body called tumor suppressor genes. And they're there inherently. You have them when you're born. And they, help when cells go rogue, they help those cells go through programmed cell death. They stimulate the immune system to attack cells that go rogue, cancer cells. They essentially starve those cancer cells of energy. So there's all these different modalities that the treatment has to combat cancer. And we deliver this gene back into the body using a cholesterol molecule. So it's a gene the body knows. Cholesterol is something that the body also recognizes as well. And so, because of that, the side effect profile is really limited.
Hmm.
It's very, very, it's a much more friendlier treatment. It's nothing like chemotherapy that's destroying tons of cells in the body in addition to the cancer cells. I mean, we're only having impact on the cancer cells at all. And we've used data to really pinpoint where our focus area is on treatment. So, knowing the tumor suppressor genes, we actually look at them and say, okay, what cancers, what patients are missing certain tumor suppressor genes that have cancer? And we've narrowed in on lung cancer, where the one gene that we have licensed, Tusk2, is missing or significantly depleted in over 80% of non small cell lung cancers. And so we're focusing on those patients and essentially just reintroducing the tumor suppressor gene back into the body where it's missing or depleted so it can work like it naturally, was meant to do.
Excuse the layman kind of like understanding of this, but like basically we have this tumor suppressing gene. It's in everybody, but it just isn't activated in the lung cancer patients, you're saying? Like, or in
Yeah, so
80% of them.
so all humans have a ton of different tumor suppressor genes,
Yeah.
and the one that we've focused on as our lead treatment candidate is called Tusk2. And while that tumor suppressor gene exists in patients, we find that over time the tumor suppressor gene can be deleted or it can be wiped out. And
Okay.
it's, is it wiped out because the cancer is growing? Don't know. But what we know is that the inherent processes that it exhibits to stifle cancer growth and essentially kill cancer cells is removed when that gene is removed. And so we're not editing the genome like CRISPR. You've heard about CRISPR where they, cut DNA, they're
Yeah.
putting in a new piece of DNA. We're not doing anything like that. We're just taking DNA, this specific gene, and reinserting it back into the body so it can be expressed in the cells and help those cancer cells go through programmed cell death.
Oh, okay. So there's the reinsertion of the gene back into the patient, but then additionally, it's about the expression of that gene that is helping
Correct.
to like basically allow the body to heal itself in the way that it has been healing itself when it was healthier.
Correct. Yeah, that's the goal there. Then that's the hypothesis, and that's what we're seeing clinically. Now, it's interesting because what we know is that it helps patients a little bit differently, and the reason that it does that is because every patient's a little bit different. I mean, we've gotten to a place where we have more data in the history right now than we ever have before as it relates to the human genome, and yet every patient has their own set of unique uh, genetic profiles. They're predisposed to certain, maybe familial factors. They have underlying health conditions. And so, every patient's a little bit unique. And cancer evolves too. There's mutations to different cancers. We've seen, Merck has a drug called Keytruda. It's an immunosuppression or immunotherapy that essentially it ramps up the body's immune system. It helps the T cells and the killer cells essentially go after and attack the cancer. Unfortunately, and it works in a lot of different cancers, but it doesn't work in all of them. And in lung cancer specifically, unfortunately, um, lung cancer patients become resistant to this treatment. It may work for a significant period of months, but ultimately, the cancer it evades, it hides from this treatment, and it does a really good job of doing it to the point where Keytruda may no longer work. And so we're at this stage where we're trying to understand individual differences of each patient, and our goal and hope, we have licensed a number of different tumor suppressor genes. If we can pinpoint what genes people are missing, the future would be a more personalized approach to medicine where you could give them tumor suppressor genes that they're depleted in to be a more friendlier treatment path for them specifically.
It's interesting because the corollary to like some of the work that we're doing and some of the work that is going on in the AI space is towards hyper personalization. And you're expressing the same idea, but additionally for medical treatment that it goes with cancer, and specifically identifying like, hey, we know that we have a very high success rate if you're in this condition, you fit this, I want to say persona. But then at the same time, like you're not just saying like we have a general treatment for lung cancer. You have very specific conditions that are met when the person shows this type of this cancer with this lack of gene expression. And I love that because it's additionally the other benefit that you're talking about is like the side effects are a lot less in that regard. Could you tell us about the like what is the differences in side effects? Because we all, I mean, maybe most of us understand that chemo is it's like taking a baseball bat to the head
Right.
in
Yeah.
some cases, and
I
nobody
mean,
really wants to go through that.
I mean, if you look at, I mean, chemo, it destroys normal cells just as well as it's destroying cancer cells, which that's awful because for certain types of cancers, in certain areas of the body, if you're destroying normal cells, like for example, the pancreas, we're very familiar with the pancreas because we have diabetes treatment. And with the pancreas, that produces insulin producing cells.
Yeah.
And so if you have normal functioning insulin producing cells in the pancreas, but those cells end up becoming attacked, whether it's through chemotherapy or they're attacked, like the immune system, for instance, may attack if the immune system's ramped up by certain immunotherapies. They can attack healthy beta cells. These are the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin, and essentially cause a person to be diabetic from it. Which that's awful. That as a result of a cancer therapy, somebody ends up getting diabetes. And in our case, the side effects that we've seen, we've had 3 prior clinical trials. We have 2 clinical trials ongoing right now in phase 2. So we've tested on probably more than 80 patients. we have a side effect that we refer to as a post-infusion syndrome, and it's really just for a couple hours after you have the infusion of our drug, you have maybe fever, chills, muscle aches. It doesn't really there isn't really much outside of that we're seeing. There are little things, but nothing that is concerning to us whatsoever. And the nice thing about that is our focus is stage 4 lung cancer patients. Most of these people are very old. They might have grandkids. They might have jobs, and so if you're minimizing the side effects, that means better quality of life. It means they may be able to still continue to do activities that they like doing, traveling, golf, whatever it is, working.
Yeah.
They can still continue to do that. I mean, we've seen so many people. I mean, I know people personally that when you take high doses of chemotherapy, I mean, it can completely destroy your muscles. I know people that have been in wheelchairs from chemotherapy. And so you're talking about a completely different shift to your ability to function while also getting treated for cancer.
I mean, that's absolutely amazing to see that the technology is moving towards that direction of having such a low, a low set of side effects compared to what we have today. Um, which is, nuclear radiation, kind of like just destroying everything in sight. And hopefully we kill the cancer at the same time that we, keep the body alive enough to heal itself.
Right.
Um, where where do you see these treatments going? What is the end state, right? Like, you get the first product launched, and then, what's the world that you envision for the future 10 years down the line?
Yeah. So what's interesting, I mean, in at least the cancer space, I think a lot of companies, biotech companies over the last decade or two, have been kind of in this reactive approach to medicine, where it's like you have a treatment that works for a short period of time, but the cancer comes back because it evades that treatment or there's a mutation. And then you're essentially going to try to fix that mutation,
Okay.
fix that situation. And so it's very reactive in that approach. However, over the last decade, we've seen a ton of companies, as I mentioned Merck's Keytruda before, because while it's a blockbuster drug, there are certain cancers that are evading it and coming back. And so you have a lot of different companies that have different approaches. We think the beauty of our approach is that it's a safer way to be treated because of the limited side effect profile. But there's other treatments out there too that are safer than chemo and whatnot, but they approach it from a different like mechanism, right? And so the interesting thing about all of these different clinical trials is they're trying to do combinations with existing drugs that are out there. And the combination effects sometimes outweigh the effect of either drug individually, which we've actually shown in some of our research and clinical trials. But it kind of signifies that there could be a lot of different possible treatments for a certain person. So think about it like as going to a restaurant where you just have an insanely long menu, and we know based on, and this is where I think we're going, is once you know the genetic profile of the person, you know what they're predisposed to, you know what their other underlying health conditions are. I would hope that in the future, because we have all these different treatment regimens that include combination therapies, that a oncologist could go and say, okay, based on what we know about the patient, we're going to select this, and this, and it's going to be in this specific sequence and order. And while that may not cure the cancer, it may prolong the person's life long enough to get to a point where it's like easily manageable. And if we can get that far, that in of itself would be just monumental. And I think we're getting there. We're collecting all the data, and you have all these companies, that small cap biotech companies, that are using their own approaches. We're all kind of trying to move the industry forward. I mean, none of us are trying to be that silver bullet. I mean, Merck, with Keytruda is trying to be the silver bullet, but we're all trying to move the industry forward and collecting more data, because personalized medicine will happen at some point in the future. And, we think that we play a part of that just as many other companies may as well.
It's absolutely fascinating because I think you're hitting on some core ideals here of being able to help people, being able to, make it personalized, having the impact of it be as little as possible to their life. And then additionally, just finding ways for people to have a better life. For anybody that's looking to get involved in the biomed space or, in helping people in the ways that you are, what recommendations would you have for them?
That's a great question. I mean, I feel like I kind of fell into it, but I've been really actively involved in Austin. We have some incubators here. The University of Texas has a very entrepreneurial focused MBA program that they run business plan competitions. When I went through my master's program at UT, I mean, it was just so much fun to do business plan competitions because it's kind of like, it's setting the stage for where you want to be to pitch to investors. But a lot of those, I mean, I know that they take place at universities all across the country, and a lot of them are open to the public. I mean, and it's kind of exciting to watch because even if you haven't jumped in yourself as an entrepreneur, but you have the bug, you can get to these things and you can at least see and experience it. Because I think it's energizing to me. I always found it fun. But when it comes to like technology itself, I mean, I think if people know what they're passionate about, you can look out to. There's tons of universities, national labs that do a ton of research, and you can search that research, or there's certain patient advisory or advocate groups online or whatever, um, where you could pinpoint different technologies, and a lot of these universities will license technologies to you, and you can license them for you can negotiate where you're not paying a lot of money up front.
Yeah.
And so we've had the opportunity to do that with Genprex. We've licensed technologies from MD Anderson Cancer Center, University of Pittsburgh, Michigan, NYU, like a lot of different universities, and we're piecing together technologies that work for our core strategy. But it's taken a lot of time and effort of ourselves to research it, and it's all been related to like what we are passionate about, what drives us, and that's treatment for oncology and diabetes.
That's so cool. I always tell people that entrepreneurism and also being a business owner is one of the best self development tools that I've ever found because there is no way that I can lie to myself when the books look the way that they do, or that our
Yeah.
customers are providing us the feedback and there's nobody else to hide behind. And so I love the idea of hitting up the business plan competitions, and then digging into the research that's coming out from various universities. That's a great place for people to get their toes wet in that space. What's the end goal?
The end goal for me or the end goal for
I
Genprex?
think both, man. Both of them are probably fascinating.
Yeah. Well, for me, I don't think I always will need to be involved in new tech development. I mean, even outside of my life with Genprex, I mean, I'm an investor in a software company here in Austin that's grown rather well over the last few years. They work primarily on data as well. It's a SaaS based company that focuses on continuous improvement, and which is really really cool because I think continuous improvement can be not only improving in personal growth but also utilizing it for a business to improve processes, to improve the quality of care that you have for patients, which they do for hospitals, to improve manufacturing or whatever. And so they have software that tracks continuous improvement. Like just being a part of that entity, an investor of that entity, has just been a blast. And so even if at the end of the day, if we're able to partner with big pharma on our programs, which I hope we can partner with somebody in our oncology program so we can get our treatment out to patients and expand into a number of different oncology therapeutic areas. I'll still want to be involved in the tech space. And you know, we got a chance a couple years back to in-license a new program from the University of Pittsburgh around diabetes. And while it's still part of Genprex. It still kind of represents this kind of corporate entrepreneurship, because we are taking a technology that's brand new out of Pittsburgh, and we are spinning it up in our company and working with Pittsburgh to do continued research. But that program is also like super, super exciting. I mean, we're using gene therapy to transform alpha cells in the pancreas to beta cells that are producing insulin. So our goal with that is that, and we're testing in animals right now, our goal is to try to eliminate the need for insulin injections. I mean, if we can recreate new beta cells in the body that are producing insulin, we hope that you don't need to inject yourself multiple times a day. We hope that it can regulate glucose to a point where those people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes aren't constantly stressed and worried about the fact that they're constantly checking their glucose levels, and what activities or foods or whatever are going to have an impact on insulin.
That's remarkably cool. I absolutely like seeing the ability for the body to heal itself through these treatments, and then you're no longer creating a patient for life, but you're actually helping them to live that better life today. Is fascinating. When kind of switching a little bit around this, like when you go to the University of Pittsburgh and you're like, I want to license this technology, right? Like you're licensing research that has basically not seen the light of day, or even if they've you know even if from the perspective of you've seen patients succeed with this, it isn't a product that's commercialized, right? Like it hasn't gone through
No.
any FDA trials, or you're really at the very beginning. So, it's not a slam dunk for you to go and license this, but there's I'd say probably a tremendous amount of risk that you're taking and bringing that to market, as well as a lot of work that goes into that commercialization of a treatment. What's that, what is that process like for you? And how do you know that this is the one that you want to take to market?
Yeah, so that process in of itself is kind of difficult to explain, because I think it's probably a little bit different for everybody. It's funny, the master's program I went through at the University of Texas kind of teaches you evaluation of technology evaluation,
Yeah.
to the point where you could make a plan to get it to commercialize. But there are so many steps along the way. I mean, as you said, with Pittsburgh, we had identified research there that was rather interesting. I mean, what they had stumbled across was two different genes or transcription factors that, when you combine them in the pancreas, and they were just studying it at a cell level at that point, they were converting these existing pancreatic cells called alpha cells, and they were noticing that they were converting into these beta-like cells that were producing insulin. And so it was a rather unique discovery, and the implications of that are huge, right? But there's tons of risk along the way. I mean, number one, they created this in an academic lab, right?
Yeah.
And so, as a entrepreneur that's licensing this new technology, you need to transfer their knowledge to you and your team. You need to transfer their technology so you understand the processes that made that gene therapy in their lab, and you have to do it in a way that is FDA compliant, that is from a manufacturing standpoint going to pass the thresholds of FDA to be something that you can put in patients. It needs to be a repeatable manufacturing process. The quality of the material has to be the same. Getting to that point, I mean, there's tons of manufacturing risks that are involved, but we've done it before and we're in the process of doing it. But like you said, you still don't know if it's going to work in humans. I mean, at this point, all of their research has been done in mice models, which are
Okay.
usually what you start out with. And then you try to humanize those mice models. So you'll take, actual human pancreatic cells in mice, and you'll treat them so the treatment would be as close to treating in a human as possible. And what we've seen from that is we know that we're creating, after you wipe out all of the insulin producing cells, so you're essentially making them a type 1 diabetic mouse, we are recreating new insulin producing cells when none had existed before. And so we've taken that from mouse models and now we're doing it into small animal studies. And if we continue to see really strong efficacy and hopefully don't have much toxicity, the goal would be to try to start in human trials to see if we can make an impact. And diabetes is a little bit different with everybody too. There's type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Some people are more diabetic than others. Some have other underlying health conditions that you're trying to treat. And so, coming up with a one size fits all therapy is challenging. But that's why you kind of have to pick and choose your kind of market, right? Your beachhead. And so, maybe we focus on type 1 diabetes to start, or maybe it's type 2, or maybe we focus on a very specific subset of patients that are like extremely, diabetic or suffer from like hypoglycemia or something. And so, that's kind of the business strategy side of things that you blend with what you're learning about the science to
Yeah.
try to get it to market in a way that makes sense and where it could be adopted and used as a therapy in patients, and hopefully, bringing some quality to people and care that they may not otherwise get.
And I think that's absolutely fascinating because we're seeing a world unfold that will allow for these personalized treatments to be, broadly adopted. It's a lot cheaper today to get our own, understanding of our own genome. There's a lot more data that's available. I mean, I can get any number of blood tests readily available. I'm working with a company, Viome, and they're doing, what's in your mouth, what's in your gut, what's in your stool to try to figure out like everything that's happening with you. Oh, and additionally blood as well, to understand how you're functioning so that you can put the right ingredients into you and understand the impact. But additionally, what you're talking about is how do you make it a little bit more personalized and better chances of success with a lower side effect ratio? Is there anything that I have failed to not ask you today? Was that
That's a good
sound
question.
negative?
I don't know. I mean, but I also don't know what I don't know. So, um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would just say I think you know everything that we've done, at least with Genprex, we followed the science. We always follow the data, follow the science. I mean, data. We live in a world that's there's data all around us, and so it's really important that you're able to analyze that data appropriately, and then you make decisions based upon it. And we've done that in our programs to try to get a treatment that is better suited for the marketplace. And I mean, like I said, I think if I was involved in any other entity, I mean, I would be driven by data to support in science to support the rationale for what you're doing. But ultimately, I think using data to support that increases your chances of it being successful. I mean, there's still a lot of luck involved. There's still a ton of risk involved elsewhere that you need to knock over. But if you're passionate about it, you kind of bring this fixer mentality to it, where it's like you'll find one way or the other to get through and make it work.
It's a great way to solve. Ryan, I got to say thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a real pleasure connecting with you and hearing about basically the joy that you're helping to bring back to people's lives through the medicine that you're in the medicine in the. Why am I blanking on them? We'll edit this. But no, just really thank you so much. Like, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm really happy that there's people like you out there who are helping to make the world a much more better place.
Yeah, no, thank you, and I appreciate you having us on and letting us share our story. And I'm always interested in hearing and learning about other people's entrepreneurial endeavors and what they're passionate about, especially when that crosses over and has some type of societal impact.
Yeah, fantastic.
So.